We're in the Royal Gallery. This is one of the royal parts of the Palace of Westminster, and this is where the procession in state will take place a little later on, when the Queen will process from the robing room through to the House of Lords. And there we see the Yeomen of the Guard just making their way, lining now the Royal Gallery, waiting for the Queen's arrival in a short while, in their very distinctive red Tudor uniforms, sometimes confused by the yeoman warders at the Tower of London. But if you look at the cross belt is the cue for you to sort of identify the fact that these are not yeoman warders, they are Yeomen of the Guard, and they're very proud of that identity. Plenty of ceremony, plenty of colour to come, and very soon the Queen will be leaving the palace. We'll be there to see that when it happens. But I did want to pick up one thing I mentioned there earlier, Nick, and it is to do with the form of today and the fact that, as I say, for the first time in 17 years, the Prince of Wales is here, and Duchess of Cornwall for the first time. Their place in the chamber, very prominent, in close proximity to the throne, and lots is being read into that.
There is a word that is used again and again, and has been for years if you go to Buckingham Palace and talk to the courtiers. It's evolution. They always talk about the power of the British monarchy evolving over the years, over the centuries. And it seems to me the symbolism, huge symbolism, of Charles and Camilla coming in their own carriage, being seen alongside Her Majesty and the Duke of Edinburgh, is, if you like, precisely that. It is an evolution. It is saying to the country, crudely, here's what comes next. We don't know when, we don't know the circumstances, it may not be for a very long time, and most people would hope it won't be, because they wish good health to Her Majesty, but it is saying to the country, get used to the idea. And I don't mean this as a facetious comparison, but when large parts of the country are absorbed by the retirement of the greatest football manager, that instant change...
You wish to declare an interest here, Nick?
I've just got a little bit of an interest,
I thought that might be the case, yeah.
But it is striking that, in a sense, this most effective of institutions in our country never does things that way. It is about saying, no, just slowly you'll get used to the idea of change, a change that would have been unthinkable just 5 years ago. Remember the controversy created by Camilla's relationship with Prince Charles. Now they have concluded, after careful thought and research and consultation, the country's ready for this, so they're doing it.
Michael Fallon, it is being described by the palace as a gradual process. It's taking sensible measures, if you like. And just before you answer, let me just point out the fact that we have the first of the regalia processions with us, because this is where the imperial state crown gets its own escort, its own procession, because of course it is the supreme symbol of the monarch's authority and sovereignty. And this will be carefully brought out by the Crown Jeweller, Michael Swift, and handed to the Barge Master, which is one of the most ancient appointments in the royal household, dating back from the time when, of course, monarchs used to use the Thames to travel as their main thoroughfare, really. And in fact, the crown jewels also would be brought to Westminster by river. So the Barge Master still retaining that title, and 24 watermen also employed by the royal household as part of the Barge Master's team. And here we have the controller of the Lord Chamberlain's office, Andrew Ford, who is the man who looks after lots of the ceremonial and big events that the palace organises from year to year. He's the man, really, who's the mastermind behind lots of these big ceremonies and big days of pageantry. And it is his duty to take the imperial state crown into the Palace of Westminster. Just outside the palace, we can hear the strains of some Welsh melodies being played by the Band of the Welsh Guards, directed by Director of Music Stephen Barnwell, as Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Ford carefully takes the imperial state crown into a little room on the left, first of all, where they will change the cushion on which it rests and put it on a proper display cushion, because it'll be put on display in a short while in the Royal Gallery. and I'll have more to say in a while about the two other important elements of regalia, the cap of maintenance and the sword of state. Michael Fallon's still with me, and thank you for bearing with me. We were talking about the importance of today in terms of the changes signified.
I think Her Majesty would be amused to be compared with Sir Alex Ferguson. I'm not sure that's quite the comparison she had in mind. And it's not new. I mean, Prince Charles has attended the state, as you pointed out, he has attended state openings before. But I suspect we're going to see him taking on more duties now, certainly some of the more arduous duties, some of the overseas travel. He already conducts investitures and stands in for the Queen on a number of occasions. I suspect we're going to see more of that, and I think Nick's probably put his finger on it. It is a very gradual reminder that there is a transition in the offing.
Caroline, it's a wonder in a way, because when you think of Queen's 87, Duke of Edinburgh is, I think, will be 92 in June. So for most people watching, they would consider it to be a fairly sensible plan of action at this stage.
Yeah, and I think what Nick said is absolutely right about evolution. I think it's a hallmark of the British monarchy, and if anybody really in the last 100 years really changed that, it was her grandfather, George V, who really modernised, if you like, the royal family in Britain. And again, I think it's that sort of evolution rather than a break that we've seen in, say, the Dutch monarchy recently that is really different here. And, you know, people love the Queen. We've seen that in terms of her Jubilee celebrations, and I don't think they're ready to say hello to somebody else and goodbye to her yet.
Let's have a look along Parliament Square, because I think the Prince of Wales is about to arrive. Royal salute for Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall. Back at Buckingham Palace, we have the second of the carriage processions, because this is the Irish state coach used by the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh, as they make their way on state opening day. It is the 60th occasion on which Her Majesty has attended the state opening, a remarkable statistic. The Irish state coach, which was made back in 1851, I think, in Dublin. And Queen Victoria took a fancy to it, so she bought it, I think for £700 or maybe 700 guineas. Anyway, it was badly destroyed in fire back in 1911 and completely remodelled and again refurbished in the 1980s. And it is rumoured that it is the Queen's favourite carriage, but we can't confirm that. These preferences are never explicitly stated. And here we are at the foot of the Victoria Tower, the Palace of Westminster, for the Prince's arrival and the Duchess's. Duchess of Cornwall, safely inside the Palace of Westminster, followed by the Prince of Wales. It's the first time for the Duchess to attend the state opening. And there's our first glimpse today of the Earl Marshal, the Duke of Norfolk, one of the great officers of state. He's the one who organises coronations and other great ceremonies and supervises the College of Arms. And it is his duty to greet the royal party, take them up the Norman staircase, the sovereign staircase as it's called, up to the robing room. We never see inside the robing room, that's always kept firmly shut. That is where the royal party will prepare before that procession in state. The Earl Marshal is a hereditary position. He's the 18th Duke of Norfolk, and his role in these events can't be understated, really. So turning right on their way into the Royal Gallery, and just a quick nod there from the Lord Great Chamberlain, Marquis of Cholmondeley, who is the other key player in the ceremonial today. He is the man who's in charge of the royal sections of the Palace of Westminster. So the doors to the robing room firmly closed. Meanwhile, in the Royal Gallery, we have the arrival of the heralds. They are the men who keep records of heraldic arms in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And they're led by the Garter Principal King of Arms, Thomas Woodcock. Followed by the other heralds, again resplendent in their medieval uniforms. The tabard, unchanged for centuries. The heralds will make their way to the Norman porch, ready for the arrival of Her Majesty in a short while. More processions to come in the Royal Gallery in a short while, because we'll also have some of the key political players involved, and we'll have a look at them in a short while as they come through, because what happens here is that lots of people congregate at the top of the stairs, basically. There's a kind of welcoming party, if you like, for Her Majesty and the Duke of Edinburgh. The heralds are there, and we've seen the household cavalry, but you'll also have the Lord Privy Seal, the Lord Chancellor, the Lord Speaker, the Speaker of the Commons. They'll all congregate there, ready for that welcome. Jeremy, I didn't ask you about your views on this process of transition that we're seeing. Do you think it's at the right pace?
I agree with the points that have been made. The Queen's been on the throne for such a long period of time that you actually have to be quite an old person now to remember before she was our monarch. And I think to evolve in a way that people can get used to the idea of transition in time, and also in practical ways, as I think Michael was saying, that once the monarch reaches her late 80s, there are obviously practical restraints in terms of her foreign travel and so on and so forth. So for Prince Charles, who himself is reaching an age where quite a lot of people might be considering retiring, let alone taking on extra responsibilities, for him to play a more prominent role seems sensible.
So what we're seeing now is the Lord Great Chamberlain taking the Imperial State crown into the robing room, because that's ready for the Queen's arrival, because she will wear the crown in that procession in state. Only one occasion, actually, in which the crown wasn't worn, because I think in 1952, when the Queen had already acceded to the throne, but she hadn't been actually formally crowned, she processed behind the crown. Since then, she's worn the crown, the Imperial State crown, and rumour has it in the palace that she wears it for a few hours in the week before the state opening, just to get used to the balance and the weight, which is quite a thought, really, isn't it? It's quite a nice, homely thought, I think. I always think of that.
It's apparently very heavy.
Just practising a little, yes. It's very well. It's got 3,000 stones on it, so it's got and I'm assuming they're all proper stones, so they're very heavy. Why don't we take a look inside the Chamber of the House of Lords and see who else is there, because it's now absolutely packed, and it's a great sight on state opening day. And we have such a cross-section of people there representing all walks of life in the United Kingdom. Ruth Rendell, the best-selling author, Baroness Rendell. And then if we have a look at one of the other rows there, we have Joan Bakewell, Baroness Bakewell, the broadcaster and author. I think that's Baroness Shackleton, Fiona Shackleton, the lawyer, prominent divorce lawyer. There we have a friendly chat between Floella Benjamin and Baroness Varsi. Lots of diplomats and ambassadors also present today. And if we go back next door to the chamber, we have the Royal Gallery, and they're ready for one of the next processions, because here we have Andrew Lansley, who is Leader of the House of Commons, but here today really in his capacity as Lord Privy Seal. Again, one of the ancient offices. The Lord Privy Seal, who was the person who safeguarded the royal seal in days gone by. So Andrew Lansley, the former Health Secretary, will join the party at the top of the stairs. Let's just have a quick peep to see who else is there, or friendly greetings. And that is Black Rod. We told the Black Rod story a little earlier on, and they'll be joined soon by the Lord Speaker and the Speaker of the Commons and the Lord Chancellor. A quick thought at this stage then, and bear with me if we go back to the ceremony, because that's very important. Just a quick thought on this stage. How will we judge a Carol?